Davante Adams. So, the Davante Adams trade sends the All-Pro, Pro Bowl, all-time Green Bay Packer wide receiver back to his favorite quarterback in New York, Aaron Rodgers, Davante Adams, and the Jets. This feels a little bit like a panic move because right after they lose a Monday Night Football game, all of a sudden they're trading for a wide receiver. It does somewhat feel that way to me, but I don't get that sense. I think ultimately, I've been somebody that's been more positive about the Jets all offseason, more positive about the Jets this season, and honestly, I've been looking at their results, especially lately, and I've been impressed with their games. I've been impressed with their offense. I've been impressed with how competitive they've been against good football teams like the Vikings and like the Bills. And I felt like in both of those games, they could have won if a few things went their way. So I honestly look at the recent performances, and I don't think that's a reason to be discouraged. That's actually why I was kind of shocked about Robert Saleh getting fired, because I sat there and I was like, why would you fire a guy after he loses to the Vikings in London, an undefeated Vikings team? And you could honestly sit there and say the reason you lost is probably because of the quarterback turning the ball over. Like, that was ultimately a little bit head-scratching from a coaching decision standpoint. And it just takes one mind away from your game planning, one mind away from your defense that honestly on Monday night looked like the worst unit. Like, the Jets offense now might be the unit that's actually carrying them towards success towards the end of this season, because right now the Jets defense looks pretty basic, pretty average, pretty mid. So honestly, like, a warranted move is just adding more firepower to Aaron Rodgers and this offense, which is Davante Adams. Now, let's give the trade details here real quick. Just pull up the tweets. So we have the Jets and the Raiders agreeing to a conditional third-round pick that can become a second-round pick. Now, I don't know if you guys have heard, in the chat can help me out here, what the condition is on this, but this is according to ESPN and Adam Schefter, the GOAT. So it can become a second-round pick. I'm not exactly sure what the conditions are on that. I don't know if that means he has to sign long-term with the team. That's what the condition is. I don't know if the condition is the amount of yards and touchdowns that he has. I don't know if the condition is the length of the Jets season, like how far they go in the playoffs. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe it's a variety of things, but that's the overall trade, as we see a pretty sweet edit there of Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers, of course, fired up to have his favorite receiver, Davante Adams. And we even saw both of the guys on Pat McAfee looking very happy as Davante Adams popped into the screen behind Aaron Rodgers. So that was a pretty cool moment to watch. Back to full screen. So Davante Adams, what does he bring to the Jets? So I really liked this move in theory because I think it does a variety of different things for the Jets. First of all, Aaron Rodgers and his offense is going to be his offense. And Aaron Rodgers' passing game, which is a West Coast, pretty vanilla style of attack, he doesn't like to utilize a lot of motion. He doesn't like a lot of play action, although he'll utilize both of those things in a very small amount. Things that often are kind of like easy buttons in offenses, play action, motion, things like that, Aaron Rodgers doesn't really love. He does typically like more of a static look. He likes to be in the gun, and he likes to be able to see the defense and pick his matchups. Kind of similar to a Peyton Manning, right? So when you're talking about Aaron Rodgers, he likes to go to his bread and his butter. And that is, in my opinion, timing, that is precision, that is matchups, and that is being able to spread the field with a variety of weapons and picking his one-on-ones and feeding his playmakers the ball quickly, efficiently, and on time. And with Davante Adams, you have a wide receiver who is obviously well-equipped to get open early in the route. He is very good at the line of scrimmage. He can release off the line still at a very high level. He is a very good, crisp route runner at, I would say, the short and intermediate levels of the field, especially the intermediate level of the field. And he can every once in a while pull out a double move or a head fake, a shake, and a bake in order to get down the field. He's not the fastest. He's not the most explosive, but he is very smooth, and his ability to change speeds and his ability to route somebody up down the field, I still think has been showcased with the Raiders over the last 2 years. That being said, I think what Adams brings to Rodgers more than any receiver I've ever seen him play with is body control, the unique sense of having a timing with Rodgers that I just don't think can be defended. In Green Bay, there were plays where, honestly, like, you would look at, let's just say, a lot of people would say Adams was the best receiver for a period of time in the NFL. And I think a lot of it, and what I would kind of counteract with that, and what I would say to kind of like, because I would often say, oh, Tyreek Hill is better. Tyreek Hill is more explosive. Tyreek Hill creates more big plays. Tyreek Hill is the better player, whatever. Like, let's just put that out there, okay? Davante Adams, the reason that people would say this is because Rodgers would continuously target him, and there would be these plays where, like, it's a back shoulder fade where the ball is perfection, the timing, the choice to turn his body at the absolute right moment to catch that ball is perfect. And Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers just have this, like, sync where they, like, no matter what the route is, they'll throw it a certain way that is, like, indefensible. So it's this unique chemistry between quarterback and wide receiver that almost can go off script within any play and make any offense and any scheme and any play work and operate. So that is what I think Davante Adams brings Aaron Rodgers more than anything. Even if Adams is not the same player he used to be, just that unique sense of timing, that unique sense of chemistry is just so good between these two players. It's kind of like Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski, even at the end of their careers, where, yeah, Gronk wasn't the same Gronk, but he still had great chemistry with Tom, where there were, like, big plays in big games where they were able to connect for big plays. So with Davante Adams, I still think he's a very good player. I don't think he's the player that he used to be. I wouldn't say he's a top 10 receiver, but I do think that he's still a number 1 receiver. And I think what this also does is have Davante Adams be able to take pressure off of Garrett Wilson. There's been a lot of pressure on Garrett Wilson this season. And the last couple of games, Rodgers and Wilson have been connecting pretty well. And I think Wilson, this actually allows him to maybe move around a little bit more, play in the slot, put him in the backfield, have him almost utilized as like a Randall Cobb-esque player where he can be used as a mismatch all over the field, a move receiver, a Z receiver, while Davante Adams becomes the big X receiver of the offense. He's always on the outside. He's winning against press coverage. He is the guy that is, running the big slant. He's the guy that's running the deep dig route. He's the guy that's running the comeback. He's the guy that's running the out, like those back shoulder fades. He's the red zone threat, but Garrett Wilson is kind of that move the chains, yak threat that I think he is actually very efficient at being. So I could see how those two kind of are able to work off of each other. And then I think Allen Lazard is that third receiver where he's the big-bodied receiver. He can play inside or outside. Preferably, I think he's still better on the inside, but that's just my opinion. He's actually played really well in contested situations this year, and him and Rodgers just seem to have, again, a very good rapport. So now Rodgers has a bunch of receivers within this offense that, like I said, is very kind of vanilla, very basic, not super schematic, not like, a Shanahan type of offense out there where these guys are wide open. This is a lot dictated on accuracy, on precision, on timing, and having those mismatches out there, it really increases the level of this offense. having better receivers in this offense, as we've seen throughout Rodgers' career. The better his receivers are, the almost better you see Rodgers play. If you look at like 2010, 2011, when he had like Greg Jennings and Jordy Nelson and Donald Driver and all these guys like down the list, they had like 4 or 5 receivers that were sick, right? And then you went through those years, 2014, with Cobb and Nelson and etc. And you look at all his MVP seasons almost, and you kind of look at what the weapons have been there. So the only time I feel like Rodgers hasn't had amazing receivers when he's played at his best was those kind of like Matt LaFleur seasons where Matt LaFleur was able to upgrade the scheme and they were very run heavy. They were very run focused, but Rodgers was able to be very efficient with his throws, and that was thanks to Davante Adams in a large part. So, yeah, Davante Adams, man, still good. I think he's going to make the Jets. I think the Jets, like I said at the beginning here, I think the Jets are a good team. Like, I know they're 2-4 or whatever, but I don't look at their record and say that's really how good they are. Like, they've lost barely to the Bills. They lost barely to the Vikings. They obviously had to play the Niners in San Francisco on Monday Night Football. They hammered the Patriots. They beat the Titans, which are not good teams, but they took care of business. And I feel like they've kind of faced a little bit of a rough schedule. But I think if the defense just plays average football, which I think they're capable of, I think that with Rodgers playing the way that he's playing, maybe a little bit more turnover prone than we've seen in years past, but still very accurate. I mean, the ball still comes out fast. The ball still comes out hot and heavy. The ball is like, I mean, he makes a lot of awesome throws weekly. He still has control of the line of scrimmage. It feels like the play calling, I haven't minded the play calling all year. I feel like it's been solid all season. Davante Adams right now, in 3 games, he's had 209 yards on 18 catches and a touchdown. He has missed the last few weeks due to a hamstring injury. That's something to monitor. I don't know if the hamstring injury is just him trying to get traded. I don't exactly know why that is. But, you know, you look at the seasons with Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers, and you look at that 2018 through 2021 stretch where he had 111 catches, 115 catches, 123 catches, 18 touchdowns, led the NFL. Yards per game in 2020 led the NFL, 98.1. You're probably not going to get that, but that just speaks to kind of their chemistry and their ability to click. And I think again, having Garrett Wilson and Davante Adams, essentially 2 number 1 receivers out there, is going to change this team. I think they're going to be capable of moving the ball through the air. I think they're going to be capable of scoring more points. With the way that the defense is looking right now, which I think is shakier than anyone would have expected, thanks to the defensive line losses that they've sustained this season, not having Hassan Reddick come to this team and provide a pass rush, right? Losing Jermaine Johnson, CJ Mosley being injured at times, Quinnen Williams maybe not playing his best football, Sauce Gardner maybe not playing his best football, and then Robert Saleh now being fired, I do think actually hurts the defense. I think with the defense kind of taking a step back, the offense needed to take a step forward. Can the defense find its way back to being, flirting with the top 10 unit alongside having a Jets offense that offensive line has been fairly average, in my opinion. They give up some sacks, some pressures, but I don't think it's been bad. I think their run game has actually been fairly solid throughout the season. A little inconsistent, but fairly solid. I thought Breece Hall might have played his best game of the season last week against the Bills. And so they have balance. They can run the football, and now they've got another mismatch on the outside, so you can't kind of overplay the run. You've got to have potentially a lot of 2 safety looks, which is going to allow the Jets to run the ball. And with Rodgers, he's one of those quarterbacks like Brady, like Breeze, like Manning, that he can check at the line. He can find out, okay, so they're playing me this way. There's a lot of room up front. We can run this ball here. I can check into a run. I can audible into a run. We can pick up 5 or 6 yards on the ground. That's going to set us up for 2nd and 4. Now we can take a shot on 2nd and 4. Maybe it's incomplete. Maybe it's complete. But then we've got a 3rd and manageable as well. We'll be able to pick that up, right? So the Jets, I honestly thought the play calling was good against Buffalo. The defense needs to play better. Obviously, you're playing Josh Allen. But yeah, I think this was a good trade for the Jets. I think this was warranted. You basically... You traded all these picks for Aaron Rodgers. You spent on Aaron Rodgers. This team is all about Aaron Rodgers. You want to try to capitalize as much as possible on Aaron Rodgers. And the best way to do that is bring in weapons that he's comfortable with, bring in weapons that he loves, bring in players around him that believe in him and that he believes in. And that's the best way to go about supporting a veteran quarterback, just like Tom Brady and the Bucs when they brought in Gronk. And it wasn't as expensive as Adams, but they brought in Gronk. They brought in AB. They brought in Leonard Fournette. Guys that Brady himself was like, let's go get this guy. Let's add to our team. Let's add to our offense. They already had Godwin. They already had Evans, right? Like the Jets, they already have Garrett Wilson. They already have Breece Hall. But they can go out and they can get better, right? You can always get better. So with this being a one-year deal, I don't think that Adams will end up being a Jet in 2025 unless Rodgers is there, which I'm not 100% sure he will be. I don't know how much longer Rodgers is actually going to play, but I don't know how that would work out in terms of the money. But regardless, this is a move for right now. This is a move for this season. And I think this makes the Jets a legitimate threat in their division. And I think this makes the Jets a legitimate threat in the AFC. Because I look at the landscape of the AFC. The Ravens are good. I don't think they're insurmountable. Their defense is definitely suspect against the pass. And again, you just acquired a receiver. Their offense is very run heavy. And I feel like if you can get ahead of them, you can force them to pass a little bit more from drop back scenarios. I think you can attack them. The Chiefs are very flawed. Despite having great coaching and a great quarterback, they have limited weaponry right now without Rashee Rice. Their tackle situation is a bit suspect. Pacheco is injured. The defense is good. There's no doubt about it. But I feel like, again, against a team like the Chiefs were able to make the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl last year because they were able to take away teams with multiple weapons. They were able to cover very, very well. They don't seem to have that same ability at that corner position. And a team like the Jets acquiring another man-to-man beater who's had success against the Chiefs, that's the move to make. Again, so like the Chiefs are the favorite. You've got the Bills, who we're going to talk about. The Bengals are not as good as we might have expected. And then otherwise, the Texans, I think, are going to be really good by the end of the year. But the Texans can be had in the secondary. So if you can add another receiver, another guy that can win one-on-ones against Houston, right? Houston maybe has one good corner, but besides that, they're a little bit thin at the corner position. They do have a very good pass rush. You're going to have to get a pass rush on CJ Stroud to beat them. But you look at the contenders, and again, having another legitimate weapon it changes the way that teams play you. It changes your offense. And I think it changes the prospects of the Jets. Again, remember, these teams with, quarterbacks that just came to the team that are learning the system, learning the players, learning the personnel. And I know Rodgers was there last year, but he didn't play last year. These teams take time to get going. And the one thing of concern for the Jets is I don't know about their coaching. I've said that all offseason. I said that last year. Robert Saleh being fired honestly doesn't really help me in that regard. And then on top of that, I don't know where this defense is at. I feel like the defense has been underwhelming, but I do believe the defense has enough talent to at least get to like a top 12 level. And in that case, if you can combine that with a top 10 offense and a top 12 defense, I feel like you can be as good as anybody in the AFC and have a shot in every game, which is exactly what the Jets want. They want to be able to make the playoffs. They want to be able to have a shot. And that's what I think they're aiming for. I'm not picking them to win the Super Bowl, but this trade definitely increases that chance. I felt like before this trade, it would have been pretty slim. The way that, the defense has been looking, the O-line being a bit up and down, Rodgers being a bit up and down. But what this does is this also increases the consistency of Rodgers because he has another weapon that's going to get open and make plays for him in contested situations. So, yeah, big move in the AFC East. JC says, breaking news, Amari Cooper is a Buffalo Bill. We, of course, know this. We're going to talk about this in a second. So that's my thoughts on Davante Adams, guys. Salary cap, things like that, doesn't matter. They restructured the contract. It's not a big deal. He's not signed long term, so it's not really even a factor. They traded for him. They restructured his contract. It ultimately is a third-round pick that is conditional to become a second-round pick. All right, guys, let me know your thoughts on that. If you haven't already, we got 62 people in here. Jump in the chat. Let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to Gronk spike the like button. And let me know what you think about the Jets. Do you think they'll make the playoffs? Do you think they'll win the AFC East? Do you think they'll do damage in the playoffs? Let me know in the chat.